Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you, panel guests. Chat and Mad Mods. Love Lady. Love Lady.
Hello, I'm just trying this now because this is coming up as a recording and it's not supposed to be, so I can't see chat or anything. So bear with me while I go out and I come back in. Oh, hang on a minute. Why isn't it going to my comments? So hang on, I won't have to. Okay, can you hear me, everyone? Hello, can anybody hear me? Hello, check my mic, audio. Hello. Oh, you can hear me. Can you still hear me, Pink? Let me know if you can still hear me because I changed the settings on the phone then. So just let me know that you can hear me, please. Talking. Okay, so as you know, I'm going to read from the book The Little Prisoner. So this comes with a trigger warning because it's about abuse of a little girl. So it is, if you could put up that it's a trigger warning for me. And I have got the copyright disclaimer up, the fair use, which I hope that's enough. So I put that going across as well. Sorry for being late. As I picked up my earbuds, whatever they are, they flew across the floor, so we had to get them. And then I dropped the book as I sat down. Then I had to, everything went wrong. Something's telling me not to read this book. So here we go. Sit down, grab a cuppa, and thanks for being here. You still cooking lunchy? Oh, Gail. What time is it where you are? All right, Pink. Thanks for being here, love. I thought you'd be here when you knew I was here. Hiya, Wally and None. Good to see you. That's it. So we got three in the house like last time. Three in the house. Ah, well, I'm feeling loose. Better thanks, Pink. Sometimes it's of a morning. I've got a terrible cough when I first wake up. So once I've had me inhaler and I feel okay. Sorry, I nipped to the loo. It's all right. Don't worry about it. I'll be nipping the loo as well. Got a cuppa at the side of me, so I'm gonna have a little swig of that and then start reading. So if you want to carry on doing what you're doing, clean up, sit down, put your feet up, get a cuppa, put your earphones on, or just listen to me. It is a good book. This it's sad, but it's a nice outcome. Do you know what I mean? At the end, thank God. But if you got this book, Pink, oh my God, you've got every book I think in the library. Have you read it, Pinks? I had this for years and didn't read it. I've got this Happy Birthday, Love Salt, Eric and Kids. They're my relations. I've had this book now for about 20 years. But am I on the right page there? Yes, so I thought I'll read it. Okay, here goes. I'm going to put the phone down. So I'm not going to be able to see the chat. So enjoy and it's a true, it's all true in the book anyway, and it was written by Jane Elliott. so I own no copyright to this book at all. But fair use, and we'll have a little discussion on it, just reviewing the book. Okie dokie. So, when people talk about evil, they are usually thinking of mass murderers like the fictional Hannibal Lecter or dictators like Adolf Hitler. But for most of us, our actual encounters with evil are more mundane. There are the school playground bullies and sadistic teachers who turn their victims' days into nightmares, the unkind care workers in the old people's homes, or the violent thieves who invade the lives of the elderly or infirm. Our brushes with these evils are usually passing or second-hand, but nonetheless chilling for that. This, however, is the true story of a 4-year-old girl who fell into the power of a man for whom evil was a relentless daily activity. She remained in his power for 17 years until she eventually managed to escape and turn the tables. It is a story of terror and abuse on a scale that is almost unbelievable, but it also tells of an enormous act of courage which led to the arrest, trial, and imprisonment of her persecutor. Most of us don't usually hear about children like Jane until we read about it in the papers, and then we all wonder how such things could be going on under the noses of all the welfare workers who are supposed to be there to help. We try to imagine what could have gone wrong, but we can't, because these children live in a world that is unimaginable to anyone who hasn't been there. This is a story of a survivor, and we should all listen to what she has to tell us. Jane Elliott's story is almost unbearable to read in parts, but it needs to be told because the people who perpetrate these sorts of crimes rely on the silence of their victims. If people talk openly about what happens behind closed doors, then evil on the scale of what happened to Jane becomes harder to achieve. Bullies can only operate when others are too frightened, ashamed, or embarrassed to talk about what is being done to them. By telling her story, Jane is making it a little harder for evil to prosper in future. The names of the characters have all been changed to protect Jane's identity and the identities of those who helped her in her fight for justice. Okay, so is it all okay today? Everyone can hear okay? Are Irish? Going to start the book now, girls. You know what you're saying? As long as everyone can hear me okay. I'm not shouting or talking loud, whatever. Any problems, tell me now, girls. And then I can sort it before I get carried away. Perfect. Sound. Here we go. I was being led back into the courtroom by a victim liaison officer, an elderly lady. Up till then, they had been capable to take me in and out of a different door from Richard, my stepfather. Or if they hadn't, then they had made sure we didn't meet, which was making me feel more confident. Hiding behind my hair, I had still been able to avoid seeing him and remembering his face too clearly. As I came back in through the door, with my head down, I saw a pair of shoes directly ahead of me, blocking my way while I looked up, straight into a face that made me feel sick with fear. The pale, snake-like eyes and the ginger hair were the same, although he looked a little stockier than I remembered him. Get me out of here, I hissed through gritted teeth, feeling his eyes boring into mine and his thoughts getting back inside my head. Get me out! Get me out! Calm down, for heaven's sake, the lady said, irritated by such a show of emotion. Come through here. She led me into a room off the court, which had a glass door. He followed us but didn't come in. Standing outside the glass just staring at me with no expression. Get the police, I screamed. Get the police. Don't be silly. She was losing patience now. Who is it you're worried about? Is it him? She gestured towards the immobile figure on the other side of the glass with the dead, staring eyes. Get someone, I screamed, and she realised there was no way she could calm me down. She walked towards the door. Don't leave me, I screamed. Suddenly, I seemed like I'd imagined him and me in the room alone. The woman was panicking now, aware that she didn't know how to handle the situation. At that moment, Marie, another police officer, arrived, finding me standing in the corner of the room, hiding my face against the wall like a child in trouble. They came to the rescue, furious with everyone and getting me to safety. He's going to kill me, I moaned as Maria put her arms around me. I'm dead. No, he won't, Jane. She soothed me. He can't do anything now. You're doing fine. It's nearly over. Early childhood memories don't always remain in the right order or come back the moment they're called. Preferring to remain stubbornly locked in secret compartments, deep in the filing cabinets of my mind. Sometimes I can picture a scene clearly from as young as 3 or 4, but I can't remember why I was there or what happened next. Every now and then, the lost memories will return unexpectedly, and often it would have been better if they remained lost. I have a horrible feeling that there are still some compartments for which my subconscious has deliberately lost the key, fearing that I won't be able to cope with what come out, but which one day will allow themselves to be forced open like others before them. It is as if they wait until they know I will be strong enough to cope with whatever is revealed. I don't look forward to seeing what's inside them. I can't always piece together the order that things happen. I might be able to remember that it was a certain size at that time that some event occurred, but unable to tell if I was 4 or 6. I might be able to remember something that was a regular occurrence, but be unable to say whether it went on for a year or 3, whether it was every week or every month. I suppose it doesn't matter very much, but this confusion makes it difficult to give a truly factual account of the earlier years of my life. Since anyone else who might be able to remember those times will probably have reasons not to tell the truth, or at least to adjust it, to make their role in it more bearable. I do remember being in care with my little brother Jimmy. I must have been about 3 when we were taken away from home, and he would have been about 18 months younger, so still little more than a baby. I loved Jimmy more than anything in the world. My dad tells me that when he used to come and take us out of the children's home for a pub lunch or some outing, I would act like a little mother to Jimmy, feeding him and fussing over him. I don't recall these outings, but I do recall how much I adored Jimmy. The main things I remember about the children's home were the brown vitamin tablets they used to disperse to us each morning in little purple cups, and being made to eat Brussels sprouts and hating every damp mouthful as they gradually grew colder and more inedible on my plate. There was one woman working there who used to single me out from the evening lineup after we had all been given our glasses of milk and take somewhere private, putting her finger to her lips as if we had a secret from the rest of the world. And then she would sit me down and comb my long hair, spending ages curling it and making me feel beautiful and special for a few minutes each day. My hair was so dark and fine that people were always asking me if I was Indian or Pakistani. When she'd finished her work, the woman would give me a hand mirror to hold up in front of me so I could see the back of my head in the mirror on the wall and admire her handiwork. It seemed like a magic mirror to me. Most of the information I picked up later about those early years and why we were taken away from home came to me because Mum was always happy to talk about me to other people as if I wasn't there. I'd be sitting quietly in the corner of the room, waiting for instruction as to my next duty, while she would be holding forth to some neighbour or other. Every so often, she would remember I was there and remind me, "Don't you ever let him know I told you that." My stepfather didn't like anyone to talk about the past. When I was in my mid-20s, I tracked Dad down, and he's told me a few things, but I don't like to keep asking him questions. It seems that Dad had a bit of a drinking problem, which Mum made worse by playing around with other blokes and generally giving him a hard time. He had already left us before we were taken into care, and Mum had started going out with Richard, or Silly Git, as I prefer to think of him. He might even have been living with us by then, although he would have been very young, no more than 16 or 17. He's only 14 years older than me. Jimmy and I were sent to a couple of different foster homes, one of which I think must have been quite nice. Since I can't remember much about it, the second one wasn't so good. They seemed to like evil. They seemed like evil people to me, but perhaps they were just very strict in a way I wasn't used to. We were never allowed to whisper to each other or speak unless we were spoken to. And when they caught us whispering, or especially me to Jimmy, one time they stuck a piece of tape over my mouth, which had been holding together a pair of newly bought socks. I had to sit at the top of the stairs with the tape over my mouth all night while everyone else in the house went to bed. Even though I wasn't having a good time in the foster family, I still never wanted to go back home, but I wouldn't have been able to explain to anyone why not. "I'm really looking forward to coming home," I would tell Mum when I saw her, but I absolutely wasn't. When we went back home for visits, there was an atmosphere in the house that made me frightened. Although nothing bad actually happened in those few hours, I would sit very quietly, not wanting to make the new man of the house angry. But Jimmy had no such inhibitions, and from the moment we were dropped off, he would scream what sounded like terror. I could tell it made Richard angry, and that frightened me even more, but nothing I could do would calm Jimmy down until the social workers came to take us back. We would just sit together on the sofa for the whole visit, with him screaming and me trying to comfort him. Richard's anger and our mother's desperation would swell so that we felt like dangerous propositions as they waited for the ordeal of the visit to be over. Jimmy had a large scar right across his forehead, which had stayed with him for his whole adulthood. I was always told that he got it from falling against the coffee table before we were taken into care. I accepted the story at the time, but thinking back now, it's an awfully big scar to get from bumping into a table. He was only tiny, so it wasn't as if he had far to fall or much weight behind him. I wondered if something more serious happened to him, and that was why we were taken into care, and why he was always so terrified to go back home. I don't suppose I'll ever know, because Jimmy was too little to remember. Someone told me we were taken into care because we were being generally neglected, that we had vivid, poor potty rings from where we had been left too long in our pots, but everyone seems to be vague about the details. Before we went into care, we lived in a flat, but by the time my memories started to kick in, Mum and Richard had moved to a council house. Maybe that was how they managed to convince the authorities that they were fit to have me back. They'd also had a baby boy of their own, called Pete, which must have made them look like a more normal family, like people who had mended their ways, matured and accepted their responsibilities. Richard was, after all, still a teenager, but there might have been a case for believing that he had now grown up enough to be put in charge of children. I sometimes wonder whether Mum and Richard would have taken me back if I'd have made as much as fuss as Jimmy, if I'd have made such a fuss as Jimmy. Now I wish I'd given it a go, since Jimmy ended up being adopted by kind people. But at the time it seemed too dangerous to make Richard angry, and I preferred to remain docile and well behaved in his presence. Years later, I discovered that they had told the authorities they only wanted the girl. I couldn't believe it, but Jimmy's files later confirmed it. Jimmy had read the files himself and felt deeply rejected, even when I assured him that he'd had the luckiest escape of his life. I also heard Mum boasting that our family had slipped a bribe to someone in the local authority to allow me home, and that two senior people had resigned when they heard that I was being returned to the hellhole, as it was described in some reports. My missing files would make interesting reading, but it isn't really important what happens in those first few years, because the real horrors were only just to begin. One of the scenes that has always remained clear in my head was saying goodbye to Jimmy on the doorstep, just on the foster home. He was crying, and I wanted to as well, but didn't dare to show my feelings to anyone. Someone had told me that Jimmy wouldn't be coming back home as well, but I didn't believe it. I think I might have overheard someone that told me they were lying. I knew they were going to separate us, and it broke my heart. I'd hated it at the foster home, but at least I had Jimmy with me. Now I was going to be moved to somewhere else where I felt bad things would be happening, and I wouldn't even have him to cuddle and talk to. I still didn't tell Mum any of these thoughts. I just told her that I couldn't wait to get home. I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Little children only want to please their parents if they can. From the moment Jimmy and I were parted, I used to try to communicate with him telepathically. Whenever I was on my own, I had a birthmark on my arm, which I convinced myself looked like the letter J. So I would stare at it and try to talk to Jimmy in my mind, telling him to be a good boy and assuring him that I would come to see him soon, asking him what sort of day he had and telling him all about mine. I never did see him again until we had both grown up and grown apart. But at that time it comforted me a little to think I was still connected to him. After Pete, Mum and Richard had three more boys, one almost every year, but none of them could take Jimmy's place in my heart. I had to keep this quiet because I was never allowed to talk about him again. It was as if he never existed in our lives. We had a lot of secrets that I was never allowed to tell anyone, that Richard was my stepfather, not my real father, although anyone living in the neighbourhood must have known. My four half brothers never realised that I wasn't their full sister until I was in my late twenties and the court case brought everything to light. I was never allowed to have any contact with any of my relations on my father's side. It was as if they didn't exist. I have no memory of my grandparents on that side at all. It was as if Richard wanted to keep control of exactly what information was allowed. My dad tells me that he tried to come and visit me in the house a few times, but was met with such violence and abuse that he decided it would be safer for me if he stayed away and allowed things to calm down. That seemed like the last of my potential allies gone, although I later discovered he had tried to keep an eye on what was happening to me in other ways. One day, a photograph of Jimmy fell out from behind another picture in an album. Who's that? Who's that? One of my little brothers asked. Richard immediately became angry, throwing the picture in the bin and making it clear there was to be no more questions asked about the little boy in the photograph. Jimmy was no longer part of our family. Any house we lived in inevitably became gleaming domestic fortress. I guess that another reason why Mum and Richard were able to convince the authorities that they would be good parents to me now was that they kept their home spotlessly clean and totally secure. My stepfather was obsessed with decorating. There was never a day when he wasn't redoing one room or another with new flock wallpaper, the sort you see inside old-fashioned pubs, or applying another coat of paint, or putting up pine cladding, or building fake brick fireplaces. I even used to cover my school books in the offcuts from old rolls of his flock wallpaper. Our privacy was everything to him. Net curtains covered the windows during the day and would be reinforced by expensive thick-lined velvet curtains as soon as the light outside started to fade. God knows where they got the money to buy them, but they ordered them from catalogues. They could never be a chink left in our armour. Anything that would allow prying eyes the slightest opportunity to see in our private lives outside the houses would be, God, I said that wrong there, sorry. Anything that would allow prying eyes the slightest opportunity to see inside our private lives. Outside the houses would be the gates, would be high fences and even higher conifers. Locks and bolts would ensure that no one, not even members of the family, could get in and out easily. Richard's control over his domain was total. Our houses were always the nicest in the area. All of us did housework. Not a speck of dust or dirt ever escaped Richard's eagle eye. If a bit of fluff came off one of our socks onto the carpet, we were immediately screamed at to pick it up. So we would pad around in slippers to be on the safe side. Visitor could never believe that anyone could keep a house with children in so clean and tidy. Every kitchen cupboard would have to be emptied and wiped down every day. Every item of furniture moved and cleaned and replaced. Even the cooker in the fridge. Ledges above the doors and windows that would normally be out of sight and out of mind were wiped down every single day. We sparkled and shone like an army barracks ruled over by a sergeant major prone to terrifying rages. The stairs had to be brushed by hand each morning, and Mum would then vacuum them 3 or 4 times during the day. The garden received just as much attention, the edges of the lawn having to be trimmed with scissors. But doing housework was a way of keeping busy and out of Richard's way, in case he was in one of his moods. Guys, the dog wants to go out for a wee. So, I will be RB. So sorry.
Maggie grabs the mic, Laney ditching for a smoke in the bushes. All natural, all the viewers woke. Moderators locked out, chaos in the chat. Dress ain't needed in this bizarre habitat. Cigarette ash falling, Maggie's in the lid. Quirky tunes and laughter, planting every seed. Channel turned to madhouse, naked folks abound. Rapture animate, lifting souls off the ground. Was it real, was it just? Leaning in the haze, dreaming wild escapades, lost in smoky craze. Maggie's takeover electrified the scene. Naked in the bushes, or just a funky dream. Rapture in the air, moderators beat down. Maggie center stage commands high demand. Techno fails and whispers, virtual distress. Everybody naked, feeling overdressed. Leanie snaps awake, cigarette half spent. Maggie's takeover, a fantastical event. Channel run amok, viewers shedding clothes. Digital rapture in the twilight it glows. Was it real, was it just? Leanie in the haze, dreaming wild escapades, lost in smoky craze. Maggie's takeover electrified the scene. Naked in the bushes, or just a funky dream. rapture in the air, moderators be damned. Maggie center stage commands high demand. Techno fails and whispers, virtual distress. Everybody naked, feeling overdressed. Leanie snaps awake, cigarette half spent. Maggie's take over a fantastical event. Channel run amok, viewers shedding clothes. Digital rapture in the twilight it glows. Was it real, was it just? Leanie in the haze, dreaming wild escapades, lost in smoky craze. Maggie's take over, electrified the scene. Naked in the bushes, or just a funky dream. Maggie grabs the mic, Laney ditching for a smoke in the bushes, or natural, all the viewers woke. Moderators locked out, chaos in the chat. Dress ain't needed in this bizarre habitat. Cigarette ash falling, Maggie's in the lid. Quirky tunes and laughter, planting every seed. Channel turned to madhouse, naked folks abound. Rapture animate, lifting souls off the ground. Was it real, was it just? Leanie in the haze, dreaming wild escapades, lost in smoky craze. Maggie's take over, electrified the scene. Naked in the bushes, or just a funky dream. Rapture in the air, moderators be damned. Maggie center stage commands high demand. Techno fails and whispers, virtual distress. Everybody naked, feeling overdressed. Leanie snaps awake, cigarette half spent. Maggie's take over, a fantastical event. Channel run amok, viewers shedding clothes. Digital rapture in the twilight it glows. Was it real, was it just? Leanie in the haze, dreaming wild escapades, lost in smoky craze. Maggie's take over, electrified the scene. Naked in the bushes, or just a funky dream.
Oh my God, it's freezing out. Oh, let me catch my breath. Oh, so we're still three of us here. Oh, JB, hello, Gail. Oh God, I'm such a scouser, aren't I? Hello, Gail. Oh, catch my breath. Is it freezing by you, Pink? Oh yeah, it's terrible. Isn't Pink funny? She knows everything, look. Yeah, it's like, this is, oh God, I can't encyclopedia. She's having a swig with a jug. Oh, I need to clean my glasses, I know that much. Of course, is it misty? Didn't realise it's the glasses. Hang on, let me have a clean of these. Oh, I don't know where my little cloth is. I think it's upstairs. Just a lot to do. Right. Let's get started. A chug of coffee. Oh, so am I, but I've just gone outside that door, Dave. And waiting for it to finish. It's blue. Please see me breath, Pink. Right, where was I up to? Richard's about 4 years. So I think I'm here. So Richard was about 4 years younger than Mum, and only 18 when I was taken back home. But to me, he was still a fully grown adult, and I knew that to answer him back or disobey him in any way would be to endanger all of our safety. Children know these things, I can't even say this word, instinct, I can't say it, just as they know which teachers they can play up at school and which ones will never tolerate any bad behaviour. Even though I hated being made to take tablets at the children's home, I'd never been frightened to fight back against the staff administering them. But something about this man told me that if I fought back or protested in any way, things would become 1,000 times worse. He didn't look like a monster, although he was over 6 feet tall, slim and muscular. He had ginger hair and pale snake-like eyes, and always dressed casually but smartly. He took great care of his appearance, just like his home. I ironed his clothes so often over the years, I can remember exactly what he owned. The neatly pressed pairs of jeans and polo shirts, the V-neck jumpers and fatty trousers. When I got older, my friends sometimes used to tell me they fancied it, which made me want to be sick, because to me, he seemed the ugliest thing in the world. He had a tattoo of Mum's name on his neck to show the world how tough he was. The moment I was swallowed up into the house and invisible to the outside world, he made his hatred of me plain. Every time he passed me when Mum wasn't looking, he'd slap me, pinch me, kick me, or pull my hair so hard I thought it would come out of the roots. He would lean his lips close to my ears and hiss how much he loathed me, while his fingers squeezed my face painfully like a vice. I hate you, you little packy bastard, he would spit. Everything was good until you came back, you little cunt. You are so fucking ugly. You wait till later. Oh, God. His hatred for me seemed to be powerful. He could hardly control himself. To call, am I allowed to say these names? Am I allowed to say these P names? Am I allowed, Pink? Because, I mean, there's obviously going to be a lot in this from this little rat, isn't there? So, am I allowed to say this name reading from a book? Oh, God, because I don't know, because you can't say a lot of this stuff now. And this book's like over 20 years old. So what do you do? I'll have to I'll have to say P, you little P bastard, okay? Alright, Saucy. Glad you made it, love. You bored? Do you think I'll be okay to say P? Pink? Because I don't like saying these words, and do you know what I mean? It's not, I don't know what to do. So I'll just say P, okay, I'm going to carry on. He took to spitting in my food whenever he had the opportunity, and I would have to mix the spittle into the mash or the gravy to make it possible to swallow, since he would force me to eat every last scrap. Oh, isn't that awful? You ain't leaving the table until you've eaten every mouthful, he'd say, as if he was merely a concerned parent, worrying about his child's diet. But all the time he would be grinning, because he knew what he'd done. When my brother Pete was old enough to talk, he saw it happen one time. Dad, he screeched, why did you spit in Janie's food? Don't be stupid, he snapped. I didn't. When I saw that Mum's attention had been caught, thinking I had a witness in little piece, I found enough courage to say, yeah, he did. He always does. But she couldn't believe anyone could do such a disgusting thing, and so from then on, Richard was able to turn it into a double bluff, making loud hawking noises over my plate and then dropping even larger globs of phlegm into it. When my mother looked away, she would toss irritably and tell not to be so stupid, as if it was no more than a joke that she no longer found funny. I think she must have known how much he hated me, though because he never seemed to like to leave me alone in a room with him for any length of time when I was tiny. If she could see he was in a mood, she had to go to, she would have to go to the toilet. She could call me to come. He, she would call me to come with her, a bit like calling a dog to heel. When we got inside, she would make me sit down in front of her with my back to her knees while she did her business. I can't think of any other reason why she would have done that, but we never spoke about it, and I was always happy to go with her knowing that it would save me from a slap or a kick. What she never realised, however, was that Richard didn't have to be in the mood to hit me or punch me or hiss insults into my ear. He did it all the time. The houses had 3 bedrooms, so I had a room of my own from the start, and it was always beautifully decorated, just as a little girl's bedroom should be. To begin with, my wallpaper was Sarah Jane, with pictures of a little girl in a big floppy hat. Then it was changed to a period design, and later a pattern of horses. I had lots of toys too, but I was never allowed to play with them, unless I did Richard some favour in return. These favours became my way of life. If Mum let me go out to play while Richard was out somewhere, and he came home and found me outside, then I would owe him a favour. If I wanted to eat a sweet or go to a friend's birthday party or watch the Muppet Show, he might say yeah, but would let me know that I would be paying him back with a favour later. In the end, I stopped asking for anything, but he would still demand the favours or call them punishments for some crime instead, like being rude or sulky. Looking back now, I realised that he was going to make me do favours anyway, so I wish I had got more in exchange for them, but I wasn't able to see so clearly what was happening at the time. He managed to make it all so confusing and frightening. My favourite toy was Wolfie, a giant teddy with a dog's head, which was almost as big as me. Wolfie had braces which I used to slip my arms through, so he would dance with me and walk around the room. He was my best friend. If Mum was in the house when Richard wanted to punish me, he would whisper in my ear, "Watch this." He would then start shouting at me about something and shouting at my mum about what a moody cow I was. Seeing the set of temper he was in, Mum would agree with him, talking sadly at what a tiresome girl I was. Richard would then kick me, slap me, and drag me upstairs by my ponytail, making me lose my footing so that I was literally being dragged by my hair. He would tell Mum that he was going to put me to bed and give me a good talking to, and would then beat me even more viciously once we got there. "Wait till your mum goes out," he'd tell me as he crushed my face between his fingers. "Then you'll get it." In the beginning, when he used to hit me with his hand, a slipper or a stick, I would always cry. Quite soon, however, I decided that I wouldn't give him the satisfaction anymore. I couldn't stop my eyes from watering up with the pain, but I found that if I just clenched my teeth and stared at him, I could stop myself from actually crying. It was the only little bit of defiance I could find the courage or strength for, and it often made me fear the beatings worse. "Not crying," he would say. "Isn't it fucking hurting enough then?" But then, when I had cried, he would become even angrier and tell me he was going to give me something to cry for. I guess he was always going to do whatever he wanted, regardless of what I did or said. I think Mum knew he was going too far sometimes, because after he put me to bed, he would sometimes creep into my room to check that I was still breathing. I used to breathe really shallowly, just to give him a fright and to punish her for letting him hurt me. It was a mean thing to do, but I was cross with her. "Janie, Janie," she would whisper, and I would open my eyes suddenly, as if I had been asleep. "Breathe properly," she would scold me, angry that I had finished her, that I had frightened her. She never raised her voice because she didn't want Richard to know that she had come up to check I was alive. Although I was angry with her for not helping me, I was also relieved that she wasn't getting beaten up herself. Other times, Richard would tell me he and I were going to do what we were going to do later, and if I didn't look pleased, or turned away or cried, he would say, "Right, you ungrateful bitch. Now look what I'm going to do. I'll teach you." He would then start rowing with Mum and beat her up in front of me. "The only reason your Mum and me argue is because of you," he would tell me over and over again, and I believed him. The guilt weighing heavily on my soul, I learned that I must always agree with him, always smile, and always be grateful for everything or anything, or there would be terrible punishments for me and my mum. Like a small boy pulling the wings of insects or stuffing them into jam jars and watching them starve or suffocate, Richard seemed to enjoy making me suffer for no reason at all. The airing cupboard for the house was in my room, and he used to make me strip my clothes off and crawl inside amongst the piles of towels. I don't know how long he left me in there, because time is immeasurable when you were small and frightened and sitting in the dark. And I don't know if the door had a lock on it, because I never had the nerve to try and get out. Disobeying orders would have brought me a far worse punishment down on my head. The rule was to endure whatever he told me to just endure it and do it, and to do so with a cheerful smile and gratitude. Being a sulky cow was one of the worst crimes I could commit. He would sometimes come back just to check I hadn't fainted from the heat. Then he would shut the door again and leave me in the dark once more, with no idea how much longer I'd be here. There was a ledge in my room too, and I remember being made to stand on it, but I can't remember what happened next. One day that memory will probably return as well, but I'm not looking forward to it. These physical humiliations and discomforts, however, were not as unsettling as the mind games, which started almost immediately I came home. Go and turn the hot water on for me, Janie, Mum would say, and I would run upstairs to the immersion. Go and turn the hot water off, Richard would tell me as soon as I got back from turning it on, and I would know to obey without saying anything. Why didn't you turn the water on when I asked you? Mum would want to know a little while later when she went up for a bath. I did, I would protest. He told me to turn it off again. You bloody little liar, he would explode, and I would have no chance of convincing Mum that I was telling the truth. Once he started ranting and raving, he would go on and it didn't stop. If I argued any further, I would have got a beating. So I just stayed quiet now, and it wouldn't be long before he thought of another game. When I came into the be- when it came to the beatings, Richard liked to vary the implements he used. Sometimes it was a slipper or a hand or a bamboo stick. He would make me choose which it was. As I got older, the beatings got less, perhaps because they had served their purpose in training me to obey him. Instead, I would just be pushed, punched, smacked around the head, or thrown across the room, or made to pay a forfeit for doing a favour. Whatever happened, it would never be less of a punishment. Do you want breakfast, Jane? Mum called through the kitchen one morning to where I was sitting on the sofa in the front room. Yes, please, I called back. No, you don't, my stepfather hissed from the nearby armchair. Tell her you don't want any. No, I don't want any really, I shouted. Why not? Mum asked, appearing in the doorway. She must be fucking mad, he yelled, jumping up from a chair. She doesn't know what the she fucking wants. Do you want fucking breakfast or not? Yes, please, I said in a small, confused voice. What do you want, Mum asked, shaking her head in puzzlement. Toast, I said as she went back to the kitchen to make it for me. The moment she was out of sight, Richard's fingers closed painfully around my face like a clamp, and he was whispering in my face, just inches away. I told you, you don't want any fucking breakfast. Now fucking tell her. I don't want any toast, Mum, I obediently called out to the kitchen. I don't really want anything. Stop messing me about, Jane, she shouted. Stop messing your mum about, Richard screamed, hitting me hard across the head. She's fucking mad, he calls out to Mum. She just likes stirring up fucking arguments. He was always playing these mind games to make Mum angry with me and to give him an excuse to smack me. I just ended up so confused. I know which memory is the first one I can find, which is a sexual connection, but I think there may be even earlier ones lying in wait beneath the dust somewhere. This one must have happened a couple of years after I came back home, because I remember I was sharing a bed with my brother Pete. My next brother Dan was also in with us in a separate bed. I'd been turned out of my room because it was having one of its routine redecorations, and Pete and I were lying top and tail in his bed. The reason I think something must have happened before it is because I remember I was awake and listening that night, terrified of what was about to happen. I'd heard my mother going out the front door, and it shut after her, and I'd known that Richard would soon be up the stairs to get me. Every sound told me a story. The living room door opened downstairs, and I could sense Richard's stealthy footsteps on the stairs. I closed my eyes, trying to stop my body from shaking so that I could pretend to be asleep. I thought maybe I would be safe because Pete was lying here right next to me, and Richard wouldn't want to wake him up. I was always clutching at straws just to give myself some hope, and I was always disappointed. I could tell the door was open beside, and I could feel Richard moving me about to wake me up. I opened my eyes and looked at him. Come out here, he whispered quietly. I climbed out of the warm bed, leaving Pete sleeping peacefully, and Richard closed the door behind me. I stood on the landing waiting as he shut the doors on the other landing, and he knelt down in front of me. We're going to play a little game, he said. Shut your eyes and don't you dare open them. I obeyed him without question and heard him unzipping his trousers. Oh. Don't open your eyes, he repeated. We're going to play this game now. I nodded, not wanting to make him angry. I want you to play with my thumb. You hold it and stroke it and move it up and down, and something magical happens. I knew it wasn't his thumb that he put in my hand, which also makes me think something must have happened before this. But I played along and pretended just as he had told me to. The more cooperative I was, I thought, the sooner I could get back to bed, and more likely I would avoid a beating. What is it you're holding? He asked every so often as I worked away. Your thumb, I replied obediently. And then the magic happened, and he told me to go to the bathroom to wash my hands. Some of his mess had spilled on the carpet, and he rubbed it with his foot, making the scratching noise that I would hear so many times over the coming years. As I came back out of the bathroom, I looked at the patch of disturbed pile on the carpet and couldn't believe that Mum would notice it when she got home. As the years went by, more and more of these patches would appear, reminding me every time I walked past and the things that I had to do. Do you want something to eat then? Richard asked, and I nodded. Come downstairs and I'll make you some toast and tea. He was really nice to me that time, just as if we had been playing a game that we both enjoyed, but he wasn't always so pleasant after he'd had his way. One night he took me into the kitchen, grabbed the long buttered handled carving knife from the drawer, pinned me against the wall, and pressed a razor sharp blade against my neck. If you ever tell anybody what we've done, I'll kill you, he snarled in my face. And then I'll kill your mum, and no one will ever know, because I'll just tell them you both ran away. I believed he was capable of it because I seen how hard he beat Mum when she made him angry, slamming her head against the floor or the walls and smashing chairs down on her while I sat on the sofa watching and hugging my little brothers as they screamed. He would always tell me that it was my fault, and I believed him. I felt so guilty, and I was terrified he would kill Mum, and then I would have no one to protect me at all. Almost as soon as I got back home, I was old enough to go to infant school. I loved everything about it, but most of all, I loved the fact that it allowed me to get out of the house and be with people who appeared to be like me. All through my school years, there were several people who seemed to go out of their way to talk to me and ask me how I was. Only later did I discover that they were friends of my dad's, and that they were trying to find out if I was all right for him. Right from the beginning, one of my friend's mothers was reporting back to him because I was always so happy at school and because I didn't carry any visible signs of abuse. They were able to report back that all was well. If only I had known that, I could have communicated with my dad through them, and maybe he would have found a way to come and get me out of the house. I think there must have been some people who had an idea about some of the things going on in the house though, because social workers would come to the door sometimes, but Richard would physically throw them out and never knew what had happened after that because the police went to look for my files years later and they disappeared. None of the social workers ever came to speak to me. I can't blame them if they were frightened off by Richard. I dare say there were people around who were physically so strong or even stronger than him, but he went into one of his blind rages. He lost all his inhibitions, and very few people were able to match his levels of aggression and viciousness. Family life provides so many little opportunities for grown-ups to inflict pain on their children if they so choose. Mum always bathed us while we were little, but a couple of times Richard got to do it. I guess Mum was ill or too heavily pregnant, and he was able to make it sound as if he was doing it a favour by taking over this chore. One night he told me he was going to wash my hair, and I was trembling with fear as we went upstairs, wondering what horrors he had planned. There was no way out. Stepping into the bath, I was like a condemned man walking up the steps to the guillotine. Everything went as if it should for a few minutes, and I stayed as quiet and happy looking as I could. Richard was giving no clues as to what he might pounce on or how, but I wasn't fooled. I knew it was coming. When it was time to wet my hair, I felt his hand gripping me tightly. He pushed my head under the water and held it there, no doubt enjoying the feeling of having the power of life or death over me. As I fought for breath and the water rushed into my mouth, I thought I was going to die. He finally decided he hated me so much he was going to kill me. My childish struggles were useless against the strength of his hands and only served to make him angrier. After what seemed like an age, he pulled me up into the air by my hair, squeezing my face painfully as I wailed and hit me around the head. Shut up and stop screaming, he hissed through gritted teeth. I forced myself to be silent as he washed my hair as though nothing was wrong, knowing that in a few minutes I was going to have to rinse the soap out and certainly wouldn't be able to resist the temptation of repeating the attack. When the moment came, I tried to hold on to both sides of the bath, but he ordered me to loosen my fingers and push me back under the water again. Infuriated even further by this futile attempt at self-defence, this challenge to his power, I came up a few seconds later spluttering and screaming, and he put his hands over my nose and mouth, swearing in my ear to shut me up. He then dragged me painfully out of the bath, gripping my arms so hard I thought he would crush them, and banging my legs on the hard edges. Get your pyjamas on, he shouted, and I obeyed, relieved to be out of the water and still alive. I went downstairs to the front room on wobbly legs, and when I saw Mum, I burst into tears. What's wrong with you? She asked. He tried to drown me, I replied. He must have heard, and he came charging into the room, screaming and shouting about how naughty I'd been, how I refused to have my hair washed, and had made a fuss when the soap went into my eyes. Oh, she never likes having her hair washed, Mum agreed. It was always easier for her to agree with him if she hadn't wanted to get a beating herself. I was sent to bed with a smack for being so uncooperative. I'm going to have a drink, guys. Isn't it terrible? Well, like this says, what goes on behind closed doors. You know, you just don't know. These poor kids are being abused everywhere. Oh, just doesn't bear thinking about, does it? Sometimes when I was in the bath, Richard would put a ladder up the side of the house and look in the window, treating it as a joke. Mum would laugh too, telling me I had to get over feeling shy about myself. Richard always managed to make it sound as though he was doing everything for my own good, as though everything that happened to me was my fault. When we were little, we were only allowed to have bats on Sunday evenings and always had to share the water in order to keep the bills down. As I got bigger, Richard started to, to let me have one during the week as well. Sometimes he would come down from having his own bath and tell me to have one in his water. He would always leave something that looked like semen floating on top of the water. The first time it happened, I tried to get out of it by wetting my hair in the basin to look as if I'd had a bath, but he came upstairs to check on me. He opened the door and smirked at me. I climbed into his filthy water, no doubt knowing how disgusted I was. When I came downstairs afterwards, I was quiet and sulky, so I got a good hiding and was sent back up to bed. When I was 7, I decided that I couldn't face going home anymore. The time had come to run away. I used to daydream about escaping all the time, but when it actually came to doing it, things seemed to become more complicated. I was convinced at that stage Richard could read my mind and that he would be able to tell what I was planning, which made me really anxious. Sometimes he did seem to know things. I was sure. I was sure that I'd never told him, and I'm sure he knew. Only years later did I realise that they were things I told my mum and that she must have passed them on to him, betraying my confidence every time. Other times he would trick confessions out of me. I know you was mucking about at school today, he would tell me when I got home, because the school board's woman came around. I would rack my brains for the slightest thing I might have done, which could have resulted in being reported like this. Being filled with guilt as I always was, it wasn't hard to find something and to convince myself that Richard truly did know everything. Believing it was hopeless to try to resist his powers, I would admit that I had been bad, and he would then be free to punish me in whatever way he pleased. I doubt if I ever really did anything wrong, apart from perhaps talking too much. I had a friend at school called Lucy, and I had told her about my stepdad beating me and threatening to kill me. I hadn't told her about any of the other stuff. That would have been too embarrassing. Lucy said she wanted to run away as well, although I don't think she was having any particular problems at home. She just fancied an adventure. I wasn't trying to escape from school because I really liked my teacher, but it seemed more sensible to us to go during the lunch hour when we were less likely to be missed than to wait until the end of the day. I want to take my sister with us as well, Lucy told me as we were laying up our escape plans. His sister was in the infant school, which was next door to the junior school where we were in our first year. How are we going to get here? I asked. I'll tell her dinner lady that she has a dentist appointment, Lucy explained. I waited in the bushes beside the playground while she disappeared into the infant school. I was so excited by the prospect of finally getting away that my heart was pumping. A few minutes later, going into Lucy, a few minutes after going in, Lucy reappeared and came running across the playground towards me. The dinner lady didn't believe me, she panted. She went to check, so I had to run for it. We'll have to go without your sister, I said, and she nodded in agreement. We ran as fast as we could to get out of the area of the school, which wasn't easy for me because I had such stupid shoes. Silly Get always went with me to buy my clothes and shoes, and for some reason he wouldn't let me get into the shop that sold sensible shoes. He always made me buy high heel court shoes with pointed toes and then insisted on putting Blakey's those little metal tips. So I would make a noise when I walked in them, and everyone would turn around to look as I went clacking past in my skinny little legs. I suppose it must have turned them on or something, but I kept twisting my ankles because I wasn't used to walking in heels. He didn't care about details like that. Lucy was always really keen to borrow my shoes, believing them to be the height of the sophistication. I would have been happy never to have seen them again as long as I lived. By the time school was over, we had managed to get a long way away and reached a row of shops on a new estate. I'm really hungry, I complained. Have you got any money? I've only got 5 pence. That was what my mum gave me for crisps. That won't get us far. We'll have to nick something. I'd never stolen anything in my life, and the thought of it filled me with horror. What if we were caught? They would be bound to take us home, and that would give Richards the perfect excuse to beat me half to death. But hunger got the better of my fears, and we went into a little supermarket to see what we could get. We must have been looking very suspicious hanging around for too long, because the woman behind the till threw us out, by which time Lucy had managed to steal a cake, but I had only managed to get a plastic chip lemon. Having panicked and grabbed the first time that cake came to my hands. Can I try your shoes? Lucy asked as we sat munching on the cake. I agreed happily since my feet were killing from walking so far. We changed socks at the same time so that I could have a long ones with pictures of the Flintstones up the sides and then continued on our way. I was desperate for the toilet, but there was none anywhere. I was just going to get down to business when a woman came. Oh God, I was desperate for the toilet, but there was nowhere else I to go other than beside the path. I was just getting down to business when a woman came round the corner with her kids, unable to run away. I had to answer their questions about where our parents were and whether they knew where we were. I don't suppose my answers were very convincing. She eventually went away, but I suspect she was planning to ring the police the moment she got to her phone. We continued on our journey, and by the time we reached open fields, it was starting to get dark. Lucy was beginning to talk about the possibility of going home, but then she didn't have anything to be afraid of when she got there. I knew that my parents would have been told of my disappearance by now, and that I was going to be in serious trouble. I wanted to keep walking forever. I didn't care how dark or how cold it got. Nothing could be as frightening to me as stepping through my own front door. Some bigger children were coming out of senior school, and we had to walk past a bunch of them. They were all staring. I guess we must have looked like the runaways we were. There wasn't much chance that we were going to get away with our break for freedom for much longer. And in fact, the next figures who appeared out of the darkness were a couple of police officers. A terrible fear gripped me when I realised they were going to take me home. I would rather have lived in the woods rather than take another beating, but I could tell Lucy was quite relieved to have been found before the night set in. The police told us off for all the trouble and all the worry we had caused to everyone and escorted us back to their car. Why did you run away? One of them asked as we drove towards home. Her dad says he's going to kill her, Lucy replied, and he beats it up all the time. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they had. Is that true? The police asked. No, I shook my head. I was lying when I told her. It never happened. I looked down at the floor to avoid his eyes and realised we were still wearing the wrong shoes and socks. I would be even more trouble if I got home without them. Quick, I whispered to Lucy, swap back. I was now more frightened about the punishment for this than I was about the punishment for running away. We were practically at my house by this time and only had time to change the shoes. I would have to take my chances with the socks. The moment my mother opened the door, she was shouting at me. She didn't seem at all relieved that I was safe, just angry at what I'd done. I was freezing cold and sweating at the same time with fear. When I heard the police telling her what Lucy had said about Richard beating me and threatening to kill me, I knew that I was really in trouble. Get upstairs to your bedroom, she shrieked that moment the police had gone, and wait there until your dad gets home so we can deal with you. He was out apparently searching for me, and so I got ready for bed with a heavy heart, knowing just what was about to happen once he returned. I couldn't sleep as I lay there listening for the sounds of him coming back into the house. Eventually, he was there, and I could hear him shouting like a lunatic at Mum. And then there was the sound of his feet running up the stairs. It was so loud and angry, I couldn't make out the words as he ripped the blankets off me and started punching me so hard I thought he was going to kill me. The pain was so bad, I actually hoped by this time I would die. In my panic, I wet myself, and it soaked his arm, making him even angrier and more violent. I didn't go back to school for about a week after that, and was bought lots of new clothes and things, so the bruises must have been pretty bad. They always kept me off school if there was any chance the teachers would see what he'd done to me. Okay, so that was chapter 1. I think I'll leave it there because it's 9:15. So is that all right for everyone? And we'll carry on chapter 2 on Friday. Has anyone even been listening to me? JB, don't forget to send the cats pictures on Messenger, love. Oh, God. Oh, thanks, JB. Thanks, love. Just having a little drink. Tries about. Oh, as soon as I start reading, I think my nose was stripping. I'm like, but you know what it is? These glasses full time my nose and they're like stopping me breathing. They need cleaning, the manky. I've cleaned them, but I'm like the window cleaners round here. I don't clean the corners. Oh, did Lainey come in? I don't know whether she got my messages to say I was doing it. That's it, Pink. Yeah, it's reality to a lot of these kids. It's awful what they go through. You just can't comprehend how a grown adult could do that to a child, could you? Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I felt like, losing my shit, but never, screaming and shouting. I've screamed and shouted, but I've never raised a hand. Never raised a hand to them. I feel too guilty. When I shout at the dog, I feel guilty. And I think I've shouted at her about twice in her life. She's ruined. Yeah, love. Well, as I say, it's hard when you're just reading non-stop out. So I'll carry on Friday. Thanks for being anyway, guys. I'm going to get another drink and dry as a bone, and I'm tired, so I'm going to get myself up the stairs to bed soon. So I will bid you all good night and God bless, and thanks for being here with me again. I don't know whether RC stays or he slid out there. Didn't see her, she's asleep. Yeah, she'll be asleep probably. Don't know whether she will be now. She's probably awake now, I think. Yeah, to be continued Friday, same time. Good night and God bless, JB. Don't forget to add me and get the cats over. Love you all. You too, Pink. Add me. Speak to you soon. Take care, everyone. Good night and God bless. Bye. Good night. Good night. Oh.
Life is hard and life is wild. It can be sad or full of smiles. And every once in a while, you need a break from the mundane. So come back to see your friend, or she'll wonder where you've been. According to Leanie, she appreciates you and all that you do. You need her, but she needs you, and that's the beauty of according to Leanie. So thank you for your time. You are a friend of mine. I'll be happy to see you again on the next According to Leanie. Be good or be good at it. Until next time, love Leanie, love Leanie, love Leanie. Next time, love Leanie, love Leanie. Life is hard and life is wild. It can be sad or full of smiles, and every once in a while you need a break from the mundane. So come back to see your friend, or she'll wonder where you've been. According to Leanie, she appreciates you and all that you do. You need her, she needs you, and that's the beauty of According to Leanie. Be good or be good at it. Until next time, love Leanie, love Leanie, love Leanie.